All right. I'm going to move to a different story. This, I am not going to, I wrote this up and I don't think I'm going to post about it just yet because I'm still looking up a few things here. But I'm going to tell you a quick story about Colorado because this last April of 2022, the Democrats who have, I believe, a legislative trifecta in Colorado, or at least they run Congress, the legislature in Colorado, they passed a law creating free preschool across the state starting now, like August of 2023. Free preschool. Like every child in the state is eligible for a half day preschool, like 15 hours a week, at no cost to their parents. It's just an incredible thing to do. I am all for it. Not only is it good for the parents because they could send their kids to school if they couldn't afford daycare or something, but I mean, the kids get a head start on their formal schooling, which is a good thing. You don't have to do it. You don't have to send your kids to preschool, but if you want to, it is now available at no cost. I love it. It's a wonderful thing. But because it's a state-run program, they have a couple of basic rules, which is if we're giving you money, if the state is giving taxpayer money to these places to run their preschools, they can't discriminate on the basis of race, things like that seem pretty normal. You can't discriminate against people for any protected class. And I bring that up because this right here is what happened this week. You could see here St. Mary's Catholic Parish and St. Bernadette Catholic Parish and the Archdiocese of Denver have now sued officials in the state of Colorado because they cannot handle this free pre-K program. And basically, the argument that the Denver Catholic Church, the Archdiocese, is making, they're saying, we want money. We want the taxpayer money to run a preschool, but also we're bigots and we don't want to give that up either. And here's the argument. I am not making this up. I'm not exaggerating here. This is basically what they say in the lawsuit. They say we have to reject students who have same-sex parents because that violates our beliefs. We have to fire staffers who are in a gay marriage because that violates our beliefs and they're not adhering to our rules. They also say we cannot recognize the existence of transgender people because the Catholic Church doesn't recognize trans people. We cannot use kids' pronouns because we have to use what's written on their birth certificate. And I feel like that's superfluous because I don't know how many preschoolers are thinking about pronouns, but that is an argument that they made. They also said we have to ban students from wearing the opposite sex's uniform or going to the wrong bathrooms, which again, they're in preschool. How many of them even know how to use the bathroom? Not all of them, but that is an argument the diocese made. And this is interesting too. While the state says, any school, if it's a religious school that is offering free preschool, they can have access to the money here, and they are allowed to prioritize members of their religious organization over other kids. The state is allowing them to do that, but this Catholic Church says, well, we don't want to just prioritize our parishes. We don't want to just prioritize Catholics in our church. We also want to make sure like Jews and Hindus are lower priority. We got to prioritize Catholics over any other religion. But the state won't allow us to do that either, which is a weird claim to make. Because again, like let's say you're from a Hindu family, but your family sends you to a Catholic church. I'm pretty sure I'm pretty sure those families kind of go in with the understanding that they're going to be teaching Catholicism. So like, I don't know what the problem would be on the Catholic Church's side there. But really, I mean, forget the religious hierarchy there. Really, the problem is they don't want gay people in their school and they want to discriminate. And the state is saying you can't do that if you want to take our money. I want to see if I could pull this up. I'm sorry I didn't do this ahead of time. This is interesting right here, if you could see this. Yeah, here we go. The Archdiocese has explained that enrolling children whose parents or legal guardians are in a same sex relationship is likely to lead to intractable conflicts because a Catholic school cannot treat a same sex couple as a family equivalent to the natural family without compromising its mission and Catholic identity. They can't treat gay people as normal. That would be weird. That's their argument here. And it just goes on like that for a while. Now, here's the thing, there's a very easy solution to all of this, which is the Catholic Church does not have to accept taxpayer funding. They don't have to accept the state's money. No one is forcing the church to participate in this program. They could run a preschool. They can run it however they want. I might make fun of it, but it's legal. Like, they can totally do that. And if families want to send their kids to those bigot factories, they can do it. And no one is stopping them from doing it. The Archdiocese can just do whatever it did before this law went into effect. And the church knows this, which is why here's the other argument they made. Are you ready for this? Here's the other argument they made in the lawsuit. We can't deal with this pre-K for free program because it's bad for business. Because if preschool is free everywhere else, why would anyone give us money? And if enrollment goes down on our end, we have to charge everyone else more money. And why are you doing that to us? That's like discrimination against Catholics. That is the argument they made. I'm quoting from, I want to make sure I have this right. Here we go. Let me show you this line right here. This is number 23. By creating a program that provides universal funding for preschool programs, Colorado has cornered the market for preschool services. Any providers who don't participate in the program will be severely disadvantaged since they will be forced to charge significantly higher prices, yada, yada, yada. You're hurting us because if something is free, why would they give us money for our bigot factories? It's bad for business to not discriminate, and we want to discriminate, and you're cutting into our sales, is their argument, apparently. Just a wild, like in the marketplace of ideas, the Catholics admit they would lose, and that's unfair, and they don't want it to be unfair. So the rules have to change because their beliefs can never, ever change. That's how you know religion is really broken. Like, this program would lift up families that cannot afford early childhood education. It gives kids this head start on reading and learning things that they might not have learned at home. And that's a problem for these Catholics because they really, really want to be anti-LGBTQ. That's the crux of their argument here. So it's not that the church wants to end the pre-K program for everyone else. What they're arguing for is they want to have the ability to discriminate against LGBTQ people and their families while still getting government funding for it. I was trying to think if this has ever happened before, and the closest version I could think of, and I don't have all this in front of me, but the Supreme Court recently ruled in a case in Maine that if Maine was providing tuition assistance for private schools, which they do in Maine because so much of it is rural and sometimes there is no public school around you, the state said, we will give kids money to attend private school because every kid deserves an education. But they said in Maine, but we're not going to give money to a religious school that wants to indoctrinate kids. Like, if there's a Catholic school that says we're not going to use the money to force Catholicism on kids, okay, fine. But anyway, a couple Christian fundamentalist schools sued, saying we want access to that money too. The Supreme Court said, yeah, Maine, you got to give those fundee schools access to the money. And that was a very disappointing decision from the Supreme Court. But the interesting thing about that case from a couple of years ago is that lawmakers in Maine went back to the drawing board and said, okay, if we're going to keep this program, we still want to make sure kids have an education, but any school that takes money from the taxpayers to have kids at their school, they have to be non-discriminatory. That applies across the board. We are not singling out religious schools. You can't discriminate if you want the money. And guess what happened? All those fundamentalist Christian schools are like, all right, we don't want your money anymore. They went to the Supreme Court for it. They won, and they're like, you know what? We don't want to play this game anymore. I think there's like one religious school that's still in the program that promised to not discriminate. So my point is, in Colorado, that might be a way out of this, where they say, like, look, our non-discrimination rules are across the board. It's not singling out this Catholic church, this Catholic archdiocese, even though they're the ones complaining about it. So they have nothing to fear, maybe, because their rules are universal. Everyone has to play by them. That said, Colorado itself has had a bunch of conservative Christians who claim the rules that everyone has to play by, they should be allowed to break those rules and still get all the credit. Just this, remember there was the lady that went to the Supreme Court recently saying, I make websites for people, and gay people might want me to make a website for their wedding, and I don't want to do that, even though no one had asked her to make a website for them. She won that case. And you might remember there was a baker in Colorado who's like, I sell pink cakes, but if a gay couple walks in and says, oh, I want the pink cake for my wedding, he's like, no, I don't want to give you that. That guy also had victories from right-wing courts. So, like, I want to say Colorado's law, as it's written for the pre-K program, seems universal. There shouldn't be any complaints about it, and a judge will toss out this lawsuit very soon. But I don't know if that'll happen. So we will see about that. Very frustrating.